You certainly can't make money from every passion, and not everybody can make money from their passions, but it's certainly possible.
Olly Richards had a series of random careers, from jazz musician to English teacher, before eventually starting a blog on his passion, language learning, and growing it into a 10 million business.
The single biggest thing that I've got to my advantage is that I've actually built a successful online education business.
Today, he writes a newsletter teaching other online entrepreneurs how to scale their businesses to 7+ figures using story learning as a living case study.
When you're investing in a business, you're not investing in the company, you're investing in the people who are running the company.
Olly is involved in multiple successful educational companies as an investor, mentor, and advisor, but his passion is still teaching and working with others.
What ended up happening was almost immediately I started to get entrepreneurs reaching out to me saying, hey, can you mentor me? Or can I work with you one-on-one somehow?
A lot of people say that are pointless, but you prove them wrong.
So what happened was
Hey Olly, welcome to the Nomad Solopreneur Show.
It's great to be here. Good to see you.
Likewise, I would like to start with some quick fire questions to set the foundation for those listening. How many businesses are you running right now?
So as a founder or co-founder, 4.
And do you have any full-time employees?
But yes, in my main business, well, in fact, throughout all of the different businesses, I think we have probably around 25, 30.
And roughly, how much time you personally are spending working inside a business currently?
These days, I'd say it's probably closing in on full time. I have a fairly loose schedule. So, I mean, I'd say it's like full time, but I often take days off and half days off and things like that. So it's an easy full time.
Is it full-time to be involved in 4 businesses? That's impressive. So can't wait to dive into details, because I know you started with building a business around your passion after you went through moving around the world to Japan, Middle East, and so on. How did you come up with the idea of building a business around something that you are passionate about? Even that might be cliche, but some people believe that you cannot actually make money from your passions.
Yeah, no, that's a load of rubbish. You certainly can't make money from every passion, and not everybody can make money from their passions, but it's certainly possible. I mean, the entire creator economy is based on that principle. So the idea, I mean, it wasn't so much an idea. It was more of just observing other people and learning what was possible. So my background was in languages. So I have learned lots of languages and I've taught languages as well. So I had the language learning and teaching background. That was my existing skill set. And then I read a book by Chris Guillebeau called The $100 Startup. And in that book, there was a case study of a guy called Benny Lewis, who had a website called Fluent in 3 Months. He was traveling around the world, blogging about languages and making a full-time income from it. I looked at it and I thought, I can do that too. And so that very same day, I started a blog on WordPress, and yeah, the rest is history.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Like sometimes we need that outside inspiration and to see that it's actually possible to turn something that you have the skill set, you have the passion in order to make a full-time business. And I know that you grow that business to over 10 million. That's super impressive, especially I will say around the language business, in which I have a lot of friends that are basically making a living. How did you do it differently than everyone else?
I mean, fundamentally, an online business like story learning or any business which is based on information products, digital products, courses, it's a combination of two things. It's a combination of the traffic you have plus then your ability to monetize that. And so fundamentally, with story learning, what we have is a lot of traffic from SEO, from YouTube, from our books, which are in bookstores around the world, and then we have a very large suite of products. We teach 15 languages. We have lots of, a whole range of levels for each of these languages. And we have, hundreds of books, 25 or so have been traditionally published in the stores, and another 100 odd are published in-house. So, if you get enough traffic and you get enough product, and then you have a brand that people like, and so they tell their friends, all of those things combined is what really grows.
And how much time is taken to build such a huge brand in order to, because like a tons of book, a ton of articles on the blog and so on, that takes a lot of time. And I think that's something that most people hold on. Like, I don't have the time. I need to put money and food on the table. I don't have time to build a brand in like 4 or 5 years. There are any shortcuts to that? That's the big goal nugget right there.
No, I mean, no, there's no shortcut. I mean, everything that's good takes time. Like I heard someone when I first got started. I heard someone say, and this was back in 2013. You know, this is a long time ago, but the point still stands today, which is start a blog or a YouTube channel or a podcast on a topic where you can use your expertise to help people. Do it for 5 years, and you'll have a full-time income. And like there are ways of doing it faster and stuff, but you know there are kind of internet marketing hacks that you can use. But fundamentally, brands take time. You know, why is McDonald's and Coca-Cola, you know, all these big companies, why are they so untouchable? It's because they've been around for 50, 100, 150 years. So no, there's no shortcut. There's tons of ways to make money on like you. It's not difficult to go out and make 10,000 a month on the internet quite quickly doing services. So if you need to put food on the table, you can go and exchange your time for money and make 5, 10 grand a month quite easily through services. If you want to actually build a brand, that takes time and it's a 5 to 10 year journey.
And I believe most people start that way. They learn a skill, they exchange it in with basically with time, and put it out there and offer something of like fixing a problem to other businesses and makes money like that. So that's the traditional way. And how you turn that into an actual educational business? You start in parallel, let's say, and build a personal brand along the time of actually serving your clients. And after, when you become an expert, because like now, of course, I don't believe all these things, but I'm trying to put myself into the shoes of the audience, which I was there as well. Like I had a lot of limiting beliefs. I thought from the imposter syndromes and so on, I thought that there are others way ahead of me. But how you position yourself as an expert before investing 10 years in crafting one single skill, let's say.
I think you have to be an expert. I mean, the I was at a university the other day on a panel discussion for the Entrepreneurs Society, and someone asked me the question. You know, he said, "I'm 21. I want to become an entrepreneur. What advice would you give me?" And I told him two things. I told him, number one, go out and spend 5 years becoming the best in the world at something, whatever it is. Number two, go and work for an entrepreneur so that you can learn how entrepreneurs behave. If you've got nothing of value to give, then you really don't have you can't build a business based on your expertise because you don't have any. So the it really is. I mean, it depends what kind of business you want to build, right? I mean, there are businesses that you can build that don't require expertise. You can go and build an agency, or you can go and build a SaaS product. There's all kinds of different things you can do. But my path in particular relies on you knowing, being really good at something. And if you're really good at something, the easiest way to monetize that is via your personal brand, because fundamentally people want to learn from individual people, not from big companies. And so by using your personal brand, you can put your voice out there on the internet via blogs, via YouTube, via podcast, and you're going to attract people who think like you, who are attracted to people like you. It's the easiest way to get started, and that's what I did. Personal brand first. Over time, though, I realized that I was the bottleneck, and so that's when I started to create the story learning system. I rebranded it to story learning. I created the story learning system, and that's what enabled the business to get much bigger because now we have lots of teachers who come in and teach the story learning method. So, this is only one way of doing business online. I think it's by far the easiest if you already have expertise. But fundamentally, if you're not really good at something, then you don't have something to teach. So you have to kind of take a different route, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the end of the day, we all almost all of us can teach someone just a few steps behind us that are following the same journey. And as you mentioned, resonates with us, they like us, they want to be where we are, and so on. And you touch on business models there. And of course, everyone brag that this is the best business model, that's the best business model. And what I particularly like about yours is the fact that allows you to have this freedom, the flexibility of working as much as you want in it and have the passive income to it. And as well, of course, that is built with time. And one thing that you particularly mentioned, the methodology, like coming out with a system that is repeatable, that's scalable, not just building custom solutions for every single client. And I believe that's basically the easiest way to grow at the end of the day. And I'd like to ask you how you identify yours in order to turn it into a system.
So I came with the system. That's the thing. So bearing in mind that my background is in languages and I have that direct experience of learning and teaching, it was quite straightforward for me to develop that system because I was doing it based on like what I know and what I've done many times myself. Now, the way that I learn languages in particular is not exactly like story learning because I have so much experience with language learning that I have my own little quirks and tricks, you know. So the challenge for me was mostly to take the things that I had learned and make it into a system that was easy to follow and repeatable. Because what I learned was that if all that I do is just tell people how I do things, hey, here's how Ollie learns language. No one's going to be able to do that because no one else is me, right? With my experience and my unique background and all of that, my personality. No one is the same as me. So I had to create a system that I thought other people en masse could follow, who are almost by definition less experienced, right? So what is the version of my method that is simple, easy, predictable for a less experienced person? But what I'm describing there really is the art of teaching. And so this is where I think people who are natural teachers or experienced teachers have a real advantage, because it's one thing for me to sit here and say, hey, I'm an expert at language learning. It's another thing for me to craft a system that someone else on the other side of the world can learn and use through a computer screen and get results from. Like, that's not easy. And so, that's where, obviously I took a lot of time over it, but that's also where I think my experience in teaching really, 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 really helped me.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, right? Like you have to be able to put your teacher hat and be able to come with approaches and ideas that anyone can follow that wants to follow that path. In your case, to learn other languages. And I think that's also one of the reasons why most online education business fails, because they just teach what worked for them. They don't
Yeah.
actually validate in the real world. And speaking of validation, once you came up with that method, what was your steps to validate it and make sure that actually it's applicable, it's not just in your head?
Yeah. I didn't really have to validate it because I already had an audience. So by the time I rebranded to Story Learning and launched the first Story Learning course, the business was 5 years old by that point.
Mhm.
I started the business in 2013. It was just, I say business, it was a blog. I started the blog in 2013. I launched my first Story Learning course with the Story Learning method. I think it was 2018. So the business was already 5 years old at that point. So all I did was I created the course and launched it to my list. But if I remember correctly, the way that I actually did it was I created the first few modules. I had like 3 or 4 modules. There were 20 modules in the whole course originally. Now there's 10, but there used to be 20 modules. I think what I did was I basically created the sales page, wrote the emails, and wrote the first like 2 or 3 modules for the course, and then sold it to my list. And then I kind of I created and dripped out the course as I went. So if it hadn't sold, then I wouldn't have bothered making the course. But luckily it did, and so I just kind of carried on and made the course, and then we had the course, and then yeah, that was all the validation I needed really, and then from that point on, I started investing quite heavily into getting other teachers to deliver this method in other languages, because there are, I can't teach a German course or a Arabic course, for example. So I had to find other teachers to do that. But the validation was very clear and obvious, and it's one of the benefits of having an audience first approach. I think it's very difficult to launch a business with a product and no audience, because you have to be very competent at marketing to validate something to a cold audience. That's not easy to do if you don't have marketing skills. It's much easier to build an audience first, and then that way, when you want to validate a product, you've got a bunch of people there who are ready and willing to buy it or not. But at least you find out immediately.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Because having a audience that already trusts you, already follows you for a long time, when you come up with something, a solution for them, that they're happy to take their money out and pay for that. And to summarize that a bit, so you start with the audience first. You Once you build that audience, you have their trust. You put out a MVP product that is not finalized by any means. You sell that first before you actually build it, and that's another huge takeaway, I think, for those listening or watching, that there are probably lots of people spending months building a product or an online course or something that no one buys it after that, even if they have a big audience, because they didn't test it, they didn't try to see if that audience actually are interested in that. And I want to like fast forward a bit, because once you build a successful business, you went quite viral with a very unusual lead magnet. A lot of people say that like huge lead magnets, like huge PDFs, or in your case, a Google Doc, are pointless, but you prove them wrong. How that come to life?
So what happened was I'd grown story learning to the point where I wasn't in the business anymore. I had a team running the whole thing. I had lots of free time. So I started a business newsletter, and I wanted to help the Ollie of 5 years ago. So how can I take someone who's kind of struggling to build their online education business, and how can I teach them stuff that's going to help them? When I was thinking through this, I thought, well, there's so much noise in the online business space, right? There's so many gurus, and I don't want to be just another guru. Like, it's a, especially for someone with like these British sensibilities, we're quite, sensitive about being seen as a kind of guru type figure. I certainly was. And I think that's why I didn't get into this space for quite some time. But the more I thought, I was speaking to one of my mentors, and we were talking through the basic value proposition of what I had to offer. And what he helped me realize was that, the single biggest thing that I've got to my advantage is that I've actually built a successful online education business. Here it is over here. You can see it. You can go to the website. You can check it out, and that's the proof, if you like. It's undeniable proof because it's there and you can see it. You can buy my books in the shops and all of that stuff. So what we decided was the best thing for me to do was to lean heavily on that, because that would be the thing that would demonstrate to people that the stuff that I have to say is maybe worth listening to. And so sat down and thought, okay, well, if that business is the main proof that I have, the main credibility piece that I have, I may as well talk about it in the lead magnet. And so then I thought, well, what can I make that's so unique that it's unignorable? And I thought back to when I was first trying to grow my business. I really wanted someone to model. I really wanted to see an example of a similar business and see how it worked. There are so many people out there teaching online business and stuff like that, but often like their business, like they make money online by teaching people how to make money online, and you can't model what they do because the dynamics are totally different, right? The dynamics of, say, Russell Brunson selling ClickFunnels is completely different to Joe Blogs teaching gardening on YouTube. It doesn't work the same way. The audiences are very different. The incentives are very different. And I really wanted to see an example of someone else teaching an actual topic, like not just make money, but an actual subject, like language. But I never found anyone because no one talks about their businesses publicly. So I thought, well, I'm just gonna tell the world how my business works and see what happens. So I sat down and just wrote a huge case study. It was 118 pages. Also a book now as well. If anyone wants to buy it on Amazon, you can find it there. And I used it as an opportunity to really think about and teach and explain not only storytelling and how it works, but my whole approach to, you know, to business building, marketing, team building, lifestyle, all of these things. And I just wrote my heart out really. It was like it's almost like I took the frustration or all the pent up energy of 10 years of building and put it down into this big Google Doc and then I launched it. And why a Google Doc rather than a PDF or a course? Answer, it's different. And so often the easiest way to get attention is just do the thing that nobody else is doing. No one does a Google Doc as a lead magnet. But what that means is when someone sees it, they pay attention because it's different. And it also comes across as it gives the air of being more legitimate. Well, not more legitimate. It gives the air of being more thoughtful information, I think, because there's just nowhere to hide on a Google Doc. There's no fancy design. It's just the words on the page. And I think so. So all in all, what I've described there, I think, is credibility, like undeniable proof and credibility, crystal clear positioning, very clear target audience, a deep, thorough piece of work that's genuinely helpful to people, and yeah, and some good writing thrown in. I think that's basically the formula.
Love it. And indeed, it's always easier to stand out when you build something that it's completely unheard of. And that's not only smart, but it's something that most people miss. They don't focus on how can I make this different. They just follow the same pattern as everyone else. And once you build that, because you turn that into a very smart funnel. And I read the amazing case study that Chanel did on you on her newsletter, and I was blown away. That's how I found about your business. And the way you use a self-liquidating flywheel approach and to drive traffic to the lead magnet, and after that with the training sequences and so on, is just very, very, very smart. And I'm saying this as a marketer and with admiration. And once all that conclude, what was the next step for you? You went straight away into one-on-one mentorship, or through a group approach, or how you actually make money behind the scenes in order to scale that newsletter business?
Sure. So I didn't actually. So the sequence was so when I started the newsletter, my intention was just to grow an audience. I didn't even plan to monetize it for a few years. I just thought, I'm just going to go and grow an audience, and then that audience will have value in the future. What ended up happening was almost immediately I started to get entrepreneurs reaching out to me saying, "Hey, can you mentor me? Or can I work with you one on one somehow?" And I was saying, "No, I don't. I don't have time. I don't want to do this. Like, no, I'm sorry, I can't. I can't. I'll keep doing my newsletter, but I'm not going to do any one-to-one stuff." But people kept asking me, and I started to pay attention. And everyone that was contacting me were like, they're really successful entrepreneurs. They're very cool people. So I started to think, hey, actually, this it would probably be quite fun to do it. So I started working with a few people one-to-one, and there was no business rationale behind this. It's just like what I wanted to do, and obviously it was it's expensive and all that. But what I discovered was I really enjoyed it uh, because with course businesses and things, you're so removed from your customers that it can become quite a lonely place actually after a while. You just end up with your head in spreadsheets all the time. This was completely different. I was on calls one on one with people helping them, and I really enjoyed the energy. And so I did more of it, and I got more people coming. I started advertising mentorship on my website. People started applying. I raised my prices because I was getting too many people applying. And so I went from newsletter directly to high ticket, and that worked really well. But again, I was just following the signals from the marketplace. But I also wanted to create something for that was affordable for most people. So I started making these workshops. So if you've got very high ticket stuff, my stuff is very expensive. It only 0.1% of people are going to go for that, and so there's still 99.9% of my audience who were not buying anything. So I thought, well, how can I monetize that? And I wanted to monetize it in a way that was allowed me to spend more money on ads, right? So basically, I was thinking to myself, all of the high ticket stuff I do, I want to keep that cash. That's mine. So I'm going to create some digital products which I can then offer to the bulk of the newsletter, and then all the money from that can go right back into buying more ads. So there's like a flywheel there between audience, digital products, audience, digital products, and 100% of the money from the digital products goes back into buying ads, and on my YouTube team as well, which is very helpful. So I just started running these monthly workshops. So every month I do a webinar. It's about 2 hours long. It's on a very specific topic like financial management or hiring, business models, marketing for education businesses, that kind of stuff. I do a really real deep dive workshop. I charge $100 for it, it's super cheap, and make a bunch of money. Not huge amounts, but I make some money from those workshops every month, and then that just goes directly back into ads to keep growing the newsletter. So that was the rationale behind it. Really, just keep doing that.
I love that because not only I resonate with it, but when you have that one-on-one interactions, helping someone one-on-one, especially those that are not probably just started, and I have nothing with them. We were all there, like starting out and so on. But when you have those conversations with someone that is already ahead and already doing something successful, and being able to give them another aha moment or a bit of guidance to drive them into the right direction, it's so freaking fulfilling, and probably that caught you as well, and keep on doing the one-on-ones. And do you have any plans of expanding this into something like a group approach, or maybe a community-based online course rather than just one-on-one and workshops, or that's not on your plans?
Yeah, I'm thinking a lot about it at the moment. I mean, I don't want to do group because I don't like that energy. It's the issue with groups is that you you have to keep up the numbers, and it creates a lot of pressure, and also by definition you're going to help people less because it's in a group. So rather than doing group, I would just keep doing more one to one. It's just much easier, much better. I am quite tempted by a community actually, because I think there are a lot of people who, there's a lot of people out there who don't identify as creators. Creator is the big buzzword at the moment in online, but lots of people don't really. I mean, I don't identify as a creator. I don't know about you, but I'm not. I don't. I mean, I create and I do it on YouTube and stuff. But I don't consider myself a creator. I think there's a big space for people who are running education businesses who enjoy teaching, who enjoy business, but don't identify as creators, who want to learn. I mean, so I am actively looking at a community option, but I have to be very, very careful about exactly how it's done. So I'm doing a lot of research, trying to figure out the best way of doing it. So I may do that next year. We'll see. Who knows? Whenever people are listening to this in the future, they might go to my website at ollyrichards.co, and there'll be a big membership or community button at the top. But currently, that doesn't exist.
Yeah, and what's interesting about what you mentioned about the group, I want to have a small debate with you, since I always love this the other perspective, especially when it's not aligned with mine. And what I did, I went on the same route after years of doing a certain thing. In my case, was marketing and web design. I pivoted to consulting at the beginning of last year, and I was offering one-on-one, and was way more fulfilling than me being stuck building websites and do
Yeah.
some marketing strategies and so on. And I was kind of still trapped in that one-on-one, and I wanted to go somehow and scale it, but without actually starting a community, at least not at that time. And I tested the group approach, and it worked unexpectedly well for me because I kept it at 5 individuals. And what I found, that all those 5 individuals, because I put some incentives if they actually show up for every live session and they complete all the playbooks that I prepare for them and so on. And thanks to those probably incentives, and also because I handpicked them, they were way more successful than my one-on-one clients.
Interesting.
Yeah, and one of the reasons, like I asked them feedback and so on, and they value more the accountability they got from the other members and the perspectives on their own thing, because most of them, they were in different industries, but bringing that industry expertise into the feedback that gave to the other members helped them actually go further and be able to be more creative, see things differently, and think outside the box, and as well differentiate themselves. And I didn't expect that, to be honest. It was a test. I even charged very low for that in order to bring people in and see if that works in a group setting. And just maybe one idea for you to test it out to see if it's a limited
Yeah.
group approach. And the level of one-on-one was almost the same as I do with one-on-one clients. And that's one thing. And do you see like,
Just to be clear, I don't have anything against group coaching at all. I think it's great. It's just that I know that I'm very attuned to, having done this for so long. I'm very very tuned into what I enjoy, what I don't enjoy, and the different dynamics that I do and don't enjoy. And I know that I am not someone who enjoys any. So you mentioned accountability. I don't want to hold anyone accountable. It's not me. That's not my role. And so for me personally, there are certain types of business models that I'm going to gravitate towards naturally, and certain ones that I'm not. And so the point for me is not so much like, this model's better than that, because any model can work. But I'm very quick to think carefully about what I will enjoy, what energy I'm going to enjoy, and make decisions based on that.
and
Does that make sense?
perfect sense. And I want to ask you specifically
Mm.
on that, like, how do you make this type of decision? Like, you run so many businesses, you have huge experience, and personally, even after 14 years, I'm still sometimes stuck. I'm an overthinker, and I'm sometimes stuck into going on the right direction. There are certain type of, I don't know, questions that you ask yourself, or working with specific type of individuals, like specifically with consultants that tell you exactly what to do, or to coaches to work on your mindset, or how you go to actually identify what path you should go.
Well, I have business mentors myself. So I mean, one of the reasons that I enjoy doing mentorship is that I have learned so much from my own mentors. So I always have business mentors, and if I can't find a mentor for something, I have a lot of friends who are business owners. So I go and sit down and talk to them. I try to be as I get as much help as I can, and because I think, it's one thing to have experience, but having experience is not the same. Like, there's two different disciplines, right? Having experience is great. It means you're going to execute on a high level, but you can't, as Scott Galloway said, you can't read the label from inside the bottle. So you need to get outside an outside perspective in order to show you what you need to do. And so, like, for example, I mentioned that I'm thinking through a community offering at the moment. I don't know if I'm going to do it. I've really, because I've never done community. Well, I have done community before, but not it's not my strong point. It's not my main thing. And so I'm going around and talking to community experts and asking them for their input and their advice. I'm just sitting there and listening and gathering information, gathering inspiration. And then the only case, then in terms of moving forward, what I would generally do is I would wait for all these ideas to come together to a point where it feels right. Yeah, this is the right thing. Like, this is the thing. It feels right. I think I can do it. I've got the energy. I want to do it. And then once those things come together, I'm like, I'm straight in. I don't wait. I go for it immediately. So I'm quite good. One of my strengths is I'm good at taking action on stuff. I can have an idea and ship it tonight. It just takes me some time to get to the point where I'm really confident that that's the right thing, and that's where I use mentors. I have mentors myself that I pay huge amounts of money to, I have friends who run all different kinds of businesses, and I'm always working very hard on my network. I run dinners for entrepreneurs in London, and every month I have 12 people come to a dinner, 12 people I don't know, and I just sit and talk to them and have dinner. And you never know where the ideas are going to come from, but the ideas come. And all of this general activity kind of helps you to form a picture of what makes the most sense.
And especially when you filter it out through your own lens, because there are a bunch of ideas out there and a bunch of smart and successful individuals. But when you filter to your
Yeah.
own lens and experience, that's when it clicks and works. And yeah, that's the secret sauce, I will say, like being surrounded by the right individuals and spending time together, asking questions, hiring the right people to guide you and help you. It's something that most successful individuals out there are doing in order to succeed.
Everyone does it. Like there is really no sense in it's honestly it's stupid to try and do everything yourself because you've got all of this expertise and help out there, and but I think people have this. Everyone Entrepreneurs tend to have this mindset where they think that every problem they have is unique to them. Like it's only me suffering. Like no one. I have a unique set of circumstances that doesn't apply to any other business. Dan Kennedy used to run these seminars, and on the screen at the back of the stage, he had in big letters the words, "This won't work in my business." Why? Because every person he worked with would say, "Oh no, that's not going to work for me. My business is different." And we all think that. We all think that we've got a unique set of circumstances, but in reality, there are a lot of universal truths about business and about mindset. And there are people with far more experience than us who have been through that, who have thought about that, and who can help you overcome it. And so it's crazy not to take advantage of that. It, the caveat is it's often quite expensive, but I think, again, the job of an entrepreneur is to get a return on capital. So you spend money and then you get more money back. Like that's what an entrepreneur does. And a huge part of that has to be on education, because if not, you're saying like, "Oh, I'm going to spend 10 years learning this because I don't want to invest the money and I could learn it in 6 months." Like it's not smart. It doesn't make sense.
Absolutely. And I'll go out there and say, this all sounds good, but who is your first hire? Not hire, like who you'll hire first as a mentor? Like how you identify what you need to fix first in your journey, especially if you're, let's say, you got some traction, you have some successes, but you really understand that you're actually stuck and something is not working, but you probably cannot really figure out.
Yeah, referrals is the answer. So, I've just hired a coach, a CEO coach for my CEO at Story Learning. I called up my friend John and I said, "Hey John, do you know any CEO coaches?" He said, "Yeah, there's a great guy called Jason. You should speak to him." So I spoke to him, liked him, and then I hired him. Like that's how this business is done, right? So for someone in the situation that you described, like number one, you've got to be around other entrepreneurs. So you go to networking groups, go to communities, go to conferences, meet people, talk to people, build your network, and then you ask for a recommendation. "Hey, I'm looking for a business mentor. Do you know anyone?" Keep asking the question, and you'll get referrals. And then you talk to them, and you see if you like them. If they try to hard sell you or pressure you, run the other way. Tell them to f off and run hard the other way. But then sooner or later you'll find a person who has a similar outlook on life to you, and then
And that's smart because indeed, and I see people paying very, very huge commissions only for getting the right hiring by referrals, because it's so much easier when someone trusts someone else. They already probably invested in that individual and they validate that skills set and then bringing that to another business. And when it comes to your next steps, because I heard that you invested in an AI solution and start putting it together, is something that you see as the next big step for you, or
yeah. So I've been an active investor for many years. In the last few years, I've invested into, well, I've co-founded one AI company, and I'm a large investor in another company that didn't used to be AI, but it's pivoted into AI and has become very successful recently. So, I think the way that I think about investing is that, so I have certain rules for investing, and the the main thing is that for someone who's growing their first business, my best advice is don't invest in anything like outside. Don't invest in any other businesses. It sounds very sexy to invest in businesses, but don't do it. You need to get to a point where you've got, a clean 7 figures of liquid net worth minimum, and you've got businesses doing, multiple 7 figures of annual revenue. Like, don't invest in anything before you've got that kind of level, right? Because the thing about investing is you can lose it all. So you need to get to a point where you've got that level of net worth, because you only want to be investing 5-10% of your net worth into startups or other businesses, because it's very risky. So you need a big pot of money to begin with, so that you can invest 5-10%, and it has to be a meaningful amount. And then from there, I have certain rules for how I invest. So number one, it needs to be in a niche that I know very, very well. So I tend to invest in education companies. Number two, I have to look at the business and think, it's clear to me that I can add significant value to this business myself. And then number three, I have to trust the founders or co-founders of the business implicitly. Because when you're investing in a business, you're not investing in the company, you're investing in the people who are running the company. And so I have to have complete faith in those people, or else, I'm not interested. So all of those are the three filters for me. And if any, they all have to be true. If either one of those is not true, then I just won't go near the business. And I've turned down many, many businesses because either, like, I don't know the industry well enough, or I can't really add any value, or maybe I'm not convinced about the founders, or whatever. So I've been doing that for some time. And so with AI, with the AI businesses, it's obviously the future, but it's also, in terms of where you can put capital right now, it's a very smart place to put money, because valuations are very, very high. But that's because, and which, by the way, it doesn't make it a good way to invest. But if you get in early, then it's good, because valuations, are very, very high, and there's a lot of potential for mergers and acquisitions in the next few years from AI. So it makes, to me, my thought process was basically, it makes sense for me to have exposure to that, even though my companies are not AI companies. I want to have exposure to AI, because there's a strong chance it's going to be part of the future. And the way that I get that exposure is through investing in other companies, not starting them myself, or not completely burning down my current businesses and rebuilding them with AI.
And speaking of that, what are your thoughts about like tutors, coaches, even consultants as being slowly replaced by AI?
I think it depends. I mean, I think one of the things that's been interesting to watch about AI, I mean, we're recording this at the end of 2024. Excuse me. ChatGPT came out over 2 years ago now. If you think back 2 years ago, everyone was saying, man, in 2 years, AI is going to take over the world. I think we can agree it hasn't yet. And everyone keeps saying, oh, the pace of change is accelerating. It's accelerating. I was like, yeah, maybe. I'm sure it is. But as things stand right now, you really can't trust AI to do any very sensitive task at all. Even with like customer service stuff, you have to have a human looking over it to make sure that it's doing the right thing. So I think inevitably more and more is going to be replaced by AI. But for any very sensitive, important task like consulting, I think you're inevitably going to still want the professional to do it. So I think what that means for individuals is, you really want to try to be operating at the top of your game, at the top of your profession, because for as long as you're the best, you're not going to be replaced. Where you don't really want to be is a kind of mediocre middle, because then you have no particular advantage.
And I love that you put it at the difference, because the best doesn't necessarily mean the number one. Of course, it's great to be the number one in certain industries, but that's quite hard. But if you're there in the top, that give you a huge advantage over the others. And yeah, I resonate with your thoughts, and especially because I was personally afraid as well as a marketer that, oh my god, that almost every single piece of the industry will be taken over, from copywriting to building websites, creating images, and so on. And obviously, half of that is kind of true, in the sense that a lot of bigger agencies are eating the small guys, because yeah, they have the money to invest into different type of approaches. But at the end of the day, there's still room for everyone. And like you mentioned, if you're still on top of your game, it's much more easier to stand out. And I would like to ask you, before we slowly conclude, I'd like to ask you a bit more about your approach, and maybe even offer me as a small case study here. So the way I do things, as I mentioned, I started with one-on-one when it comes to consulting, moving to a group approach, and I'm thinking as well about a community. And from your conversation with other community experts and so on, what were the main challenges they face? Were the constant availability in that community, or lack of engagement, or something else?
Well, I don't know if I feel qualified to answer that, to be honest, because I'm still having those conversations and I'm asking very specific questions. So, you know, so anything I say here is going to be, you have to understand that it's like me thinking through these things my thinking is ongoing. But so I haven't really focused so much on what other people struggle with, so much as what needs to be true for me. And you know, a few things that I'll say. So something that Jay Klaus told me was that there's two ways of thinking about communities: an education-based community or a experience-based community. And the education-based community is going to essentially be people are signing up to the community to learn from the leader, from the guru. That's an education-based one. But an experience or community-based membership is where people are, the value proposition of the community is that people are signing up to learn, not to learn, to meet other people. So the proposition of the community versus the education are quite different. And I felt that was a useful dichotomy, because one of the things for me personally is that I don't want to make a membership where I am there being the person in there every day teaching, because that's not scalable for me. So I'm looking at ways to build a community which are more focused on the people inside and the network effect of those inside, rather than the education piece. And so the main thing that I'm taking from this is the need for clarity, complete clarity around the benefit of joining the community. So what precisely is it that you're going to get by joining? Is it you're going to learn this and grow your business faster? Is it that you're going to meet a bunch of friends and feel a sense of belonging for the first time in your entrepreneurial life? Like whatever it is, that benefit needs to be very, very clear, and then obviously you need to be able to deliver on that benefit. So that's what I'm taking from the people that I'm speaking to.
And,
But again, just to be clear, that's not from me, that's from other people.
but still, that's super smart and a nice perspective. My question will be, why not do both? Of course, for those that want to be involved, want to be active in that community, do you think that will be too much, or be too hard to compel that value proposition if you offer both the educational part and the experience?
Again, I'm just not the expert here. I don't know, but I think that if you're, what I know that what people like Stu McLaren say is always that people come for the education and they stay for the community, which kind of makes sense. So if you're focusing on the education piece, then it definitely makes sense to build the community on top of that for sure. But that's not always the case. You have people like Ben Settle who have a print newsletter where you pay $100 odd dollars a month. That's continuity. Is that membership? Technically, I don't know what you want to call it, but you get a print newsletter delivered to your house every month, and that's it. That's the product. There's no zero community. You can't talk to Ben. You can't. There's no community. There's like just the print newsletter. So, I think it all comes down to what we touched on earlier, which is that there is no best way of doing things. I think the trick is to really try to understand the dynamics, the relevant dynamics of what you're trying to do, and then layer that over what you want personally from your business and your life. And then there's this Venn diagram there's that space in the middle of the Venn diagram where the magic happens. And, I would encourage people to only kind of move forward if they find that perfect space in the middle, and only if they find that.
I think that's a beautiful way to conclude this, because indeed it's impossible to follow a business model if that doesn't align with your lifestyle that you want to live, or the way you want, your goals and everything, and bringing all that together and see where it fits. That's perfect. Olly, this was amazing. Please tell those that are tuning in today where they can get in touch with you if they want to check your newsletter, the case study, or work with you.
Absolutely. So the best place to start rather is with my case study. It explains in a lot of detail exactly how my language business works. You can download that for free at ollyrichards.co. And you can also find the book on Amazon as well. If you just search on Amazon for case study anatomy of a $10 million online education business, you can find it there. And you can connect with me on LinkedIn. And I have a fairly active YouTube channel as well, where I talk about all kinds of business stuff there. So yeah, pick your medium of choice and come and say hi.
Awesome. And I'll put the links in the show notes as well. And I can attest that it's all 100% the best case study that I ever read, because it's so detailed that even that was 111 or 70 pages or something like that, I didn't expect to be such in detail. I expect to be a lot of, I don't know, graphics and stuff, but it was very, very detailed. So hands down, congrats on
Cool.
that.
No, thank you. I appreciate you saying that.
Thank you as well. I appreciate you a lot that you joined me today here, and can't wait to put this out in the world and people to hopefully take a lot of notes and apply what they learn.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you, man.
You, yes, you're one of the few that stick to the end. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for doing so. If you haven't subscribed already, please do so below. And if you got any value from this, please share it with a friend. They might got some value from it as well. Thank you so much, and until next week, pura vida!